Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're jumping right in today with something I know resonates with many of you. How do we actually build a stronger connection with God when, well, modern life is just so full of distractions?
Exactly. Think of this as us unpacking some really insightful points from a YouTube discussion quite a few of you highlighted. It's called Asaya Oset, or How to Build a Relationship with God, from their Narrative podcast featuring Dr. Haifa
Right,
Yunus.
on the Sayer Al-Ataibi channel. And that's our source material, the ideas you brought to the table. So
Yeah.
our mission really is to pull out practical advice, maybe some new perspectives, on deepening faith today.
Especially given how fast everything moves and, all the things competing for our attention.
Absolutely. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
How do we make that connection real? How do we make prayer feel like, well, like a real conversation?
Well, the discussion we looked at jumps straight into that first big hurdle, distractions, just the sheer amount of them.
Mhm.
It talks about how easy it is to have sort of casual relationships, surface level stuff, and how the pace of life just pushes God to the back of our minds sometimes.
Yeah, that really rings true. And I get specific, even mentioning things like workplace interactions, needing to be mindful even when you're just, say, sharing jokes.
Right. Where's your head really at in those moments? It makes you think.
It does. And there was an interesting comparison made too, wasn't there, between the struggles the early Muslims faced and our lives today.
Yeah, the idea that our relative comfort, our luxury almost, can actually be its own challenge. Back
Wow.
then, survival was the focus. Now we have so many things, tech, material stuff, that can pull us away from worship if we're not careful.
It's not just the obvious big things either. The discussion mentioned how even good things, like focusing on, providing for your family or your career,
Can become distractions if they overshadow that primary connection with God.
and this connects to a really subtle point they raised about hidden hypocrisy wasn't the term, but something like hidden inauthenticity.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like unintentionally giving more weight to your phone or work or how you look or social media more than your actual devotion.
It's insidious because you might not even realize you're doing it.
Exactly. It's a trap.
Okay, so recognizing the distractions is step one, but then the discussion shifts, right, to the foundation needed before tackling the distraction.
Precisely. It goes back to the Meccan period in early Islam. The focus then wasn't immediately on, say, the detailed rules of prayer. It was on planting that core belief, tawhid, the absolute oneness of God.
That makes sense. Get the foundation solid first.
The idea being, if you truly grasp God's greatness, the distractions they lose their power. Their pull isn't as strong.
And the Quran constantly emphasizes God's greatness, yet maybe we don't fully appreciate it. Is that the idea?
That's what the source suggests, yeah. That maybe our conception of his greatness is often inadequate.
So building on that foundation, how do we change our perspective on the world itself? The discussion had that image.
The sweet greenery.
Yes. Beautiful, enjoyable, but fleeting.
Exactly. So the advice is, even when you see beauty, consciously remember God. Say, SubhanAllah, glory be to God, connect it back.
It's like retraining your default response.
Yeah,
And this ties into the idea of this life versus the hereafter.
right. The Quranic verse mentioned this worldly life is nothing but play and amusement, the hereafter. That is the real life. It puts things in perspective.
So it's not about hating the world, but seeing it for what it is.
Precisely. Live in it. Use what God has given you, but seek your real home in the hereafter. Use this life to build for that one.
And this awareness needs to start early, right? At home.
Yes, instilling that sense of God's presence from a young age is key, according to the source.
And it's not just about the doing the praying, the hijab, but the being, the inner relationship.
Exactly. Knowing God, loving Him, submitting, asking forgiveness, that internal connection is paramount.
The discussion then brings up the experience of new Muslims, which I found really powerful.
It often highlights how converts approach Islam with such intensity and seriousness. They're actively striving.
Which can be quite a mirror for those of us born into the faith, right?
Yeah, the source suggests we might take it for granted sometimes. There's this call to, rekindle that initial awe and appreciation.
Remember what a gift it is.
Absolutely. And that story shared about the 15-year-old convert potentially facing family rejection
Wow, it really hammers home the blessing many of us have.
definitely puts things in perspective. Okay, let's pivot to prayer itself. Salah. The discussion framed it not just as an obligation.
But as a connection, a conversation. That line, if you want to talk to God, pray. If you want God to talk to you, read his book. That's powerful.
It really shifts the mindset, doesn't it, from have to get to.
And the emphasis on humility in prayer, being present, focused on God, not letting your mind wander off to your shopping list or work problems.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. But the discussion points to practical things, like lengthening the prostration, sujud,
Yeah.
seeing that as a moment of real closeness.
A chance to really connect. Yes. And it's not just the prayer itself, is it? It's how you live outside of prayer that affects the quality within prayer.
It's all connected, a holistic thing.
Right. And reflecting on the meaning of what you're reciting, like Surah Al-Ikhlas, understanding the profound statement of God's oneness you're making, not just rote recitation.
So understanding is key. Now, the discussion also touched on trials, which everyone faces.
Yes, and the point was that both hardship and ease can be trials. It's easy to see difficulty as a test, but prosperity is too.
How so?
Well, the question becomes, what does God want from you in this time of ease? Are you grateful? Are you using your blessings wisely? Or are you becoming complacent?
That's a challenging thought. It links back to the dangers of a comfortable, materialistic life.
Exactly, and that leads to the fast food spirituality analogy.
Yes, I like that one. Wanting instant spiritual results without putting in the effort.
Right. We spend years studying for a degree, hours building a career, but sometimes expect spiritual growth to happen overnight.
We need to change that mindset, that concept of things, as the source put it, through education, through understanding.
And this ties into setting meaningful goals. The discussion mentioned an existential vacuum, a lack of deep purpose for some Muslims today.
So the challenge is to set goals aligned with pleasing God, with the hereafter, not just, getting the next promotion or a bigger house.
Yes, aiming higher. And crucially, persevering towards those goals, even when it's tough, even when people discourage you.
Of course, you can't talk about striving without acknowledging the opposition, the negativity, the devil's influence.
No, you can't. And the Quran is explicit. Satan is a clear enemy. The source reminds us of his vow to mislead humanity.
Except God's sincere servants.
Right. And it highlights his tactics, the temptations, the whispers, and how easily we sometimes listen.
It's humbling.
Right.
But the Quran also shows his weakness, right? That he admits he has no real power over us.
Exactly. It's a deception we consent to, and the primary defense mentioned.
Regular engagement with the Quran.
Yes. Not just reading, but understanding, applying, contemplating.
Moving beyond just recitation.
Right. The Quran as an ocean, always deeper levels to explore. And the source talked about abandoning the Quran in different ways.
Like not reading it, sure, but also not understanding it, not living by it.
And seeking refuge through specific surahs like Al-Falaq and An-Nas as direct protection.
Making it a constant companion.
Absolutely. And the key to contemplating it, love. Seeing it not as an obligation, but as the words of the one you love.
That changes everything. Okay, another way to connect directly is through dua, supplication.
Yes, but again, the warning was about it becoming routine, just reciting words without the heart being present.
So the reality is, God is closer than our jugular vein.
Yeah.
He hears everything.
Exactly, and the path to closeness. Fulfilling the obligatory acts, then adding the voluntary ones. That Hadith Qudsi is so powerful.
You draw near through obedience. Love and obedience go hand in hand.
Impossible to truly love God without obeying him. And reflecting on Quranic du'as, like Prophet Yusuf's, even at the height of power, asking for a righteous death.
Shows where the ultimate focus should be. It really emphasizes investing effort and sincerity into our dua.
A present heart. That's crucial.
Now, shifting gears slightly, but still related to modern challenges. Navigating relationships, especially casual ones.
Yes, a big topic. The source acknowledged how common these are, but pointed straight to the Quranic guidance in Surah An-Nur.
Lowering the gaze, guarding chastity for both men and women.
It's about protection and being mindful even in, say, work settings. Recognizing when an interaction starts to feel different, drawing lines.
It requires inner piety, that inner awareness again.
Definitely. Islam is protective, and this includes protecting ourselves from harmful media exposure, which the source mentions can really impact the heart.
Which naturally leads to choosing a spouse. A huge decision.
And the warning was against marrying based only on that initial love feeling, which can be blind.
Seeing marriage itself as an act of worship. A way to get closer to God together.
Right. Prioritizing faith and character, as the Prophet advised. The discussion also lamented how sometimes society makes lawful marriage hard and unlawful relationships easy.
That's a whole other conversation, but a valid point.
Okay.
The core message was keeping the hereafter as the goal, even in marriage.
Obedience over fleeting desires, always.
The discussion also tackled the sensitive issue of hijab.
Yes, acknowledging that some women remove it, maybe feeling pressured into it earlier or lacking personal conviction.
And the emphasis was,
Back to the foundation. Knowing and loving God should be the why behind any act of worship. Plant the faith first.
focus on the core message, worshiping God sincerely, making religious discourse about the beauty and truth of Islam.
Exactly. Which connects to the broader question of Islam and modernity. Are they compatible?
The source seemed to argue yes, but with nuance.
Right. Renewing discourse, yes, but holding firm to core tenets. Modern tools, internet, TV are permissible.
Depending on how you use them. Use them for good, avoid the bad. Simple, but needs discipline.
And protecting yourself from harmful influences online, the people you follow, the friends you keep. The Quran warns against associating with those whose hearts are heedless of God.
So, be selective. Strengthen your own faith with knowledge. Avoid doubt-inducing situations.
And embracing being potentially different, a stranger in terms of practice, knowing there's a reward in that steadfastness.
Finally, the discussion addressed psychological struggles, depression, anxiety, sadness that some young Muslims face.
Acknowledging these are real, but reminding us that true strength comes from God.
So seek professional help if needed, absolutely, but also seek strength in that relationship with God.
Yes. Through prayer, remembrance, seeking knowledge, fleeing to God when things are tough.
Recognizing, too, perhaps, the impact of excessive worldly indulgence on the heart.
Yes, that was mentioned. The need for self-discipline. And seeking forgiveness, istighfar, as a remedy for those heavy feelings. It all comes back to that internal connection.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground, from distractions to prayer, trials, goals, relationships. It really paints a holistic picture of striving for that connection in today's world.
It really does. And it's clear, isn't it, that this isn't about finding some magic formula. It's an ongoing journey.
Continuous effort, continuous learning.
Exactly. That's the main takeaway for me. It requires constant effort, reflection, and just a sincere desire to get closer to Him in everything we do.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you for unpacking all of that. And for you listening, we really hope this deep dive into the source material has given you some valuable food for thought.
And maybe leaves you with a question to ponder as you go about your day. What's one small, concrete thing you can do today, right now even, inspired by this conversation, to actively invest in your relationship with God? Just one thing.